Cool. Welcome to Gateway API Community Meeting. It is October 27th. Man, time just flies by. Um, yeah, we've got a lot going on. If you don't mind dropping your name on the attendee list, this meeting in particular seems to be getting completely out attended by the other meeting time. So if you want this meeting time to continue, I highly recommend, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to get rid of it, but like, please like make it clear that people still are attending this meeting is what I'm trying to say
Please.
here. Yeah, yes, for Nick especially. um, and yeah, with that, I think we got a fairly good agenda. As always, don't hesitate to drop anything you want on the agenda. We'll try and make time for it because this is a Kubernetes community meeting. Don't hesitate to, one, follow the code of conduct, but two, add anything that you'd like to be discussed to the agenda. Raise a hand. We'll discuss it. Whatever it is, we want to make room for anyone and everyone. So yeah, I think that's that. Nick, I think you're up first. I don't see Flynn here, so take it away.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll put this in just in case Flynn was here as well, but I just wanted to make sure everyone has checked the most recent changes to the next release discussions. Like I think I think it's fair to say we've heard some feedback that like, oh, this decision is decided already. There's nothing more to talk about. It's like, well, I think the thing that we have decided is that we're going to change something. The exact details of what we're going to change is still up for debate. So if you don't want to change things, like it's okay to say I don't want to change that. Like, I mean, maybe we might be able to accept it, maybe we might not, but like it's better to have your feedback registered and make sure that it's as close as you is that what we will change to is as close as to what you want as you can. So please take another look at the at this discussion. And yeah, if anyone else has any questions about that, then wanted to leave some time here to talk about it. Candace?
I just added a new comment there a couple hours ago. Um, it's just something, we've been trying to talk about it within my team about how are we how are we going to work with this new procedure and because we're not actually implementers, we're integrators, which I think a lot of the people in the community are.
Mhm.
Um, I'm trying to propose that integrators also get a chance to sponsor, because to me it looks like um,
I mean,
the mechanism for voting is now, like becoming a sponsor, and thus integrators don't have a vote if they're not allowed to be sponsors. But at the same time, integrators are often, are contributing to gaps, to reviews, to um, conformance tests, and to everything else, except for the implementations. So I wanted to propose that integrators also get to be sponsors.
oh, thanks for the proposal. Rob, you put your hand up.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that what we're really looking for with this requirement is that we have a path for features to get out of experimental. That's the the fundamental thing we're pushing for here. So what that means in practice is we need 3 implementations to say, yeah, I'm going to help get this out of experimental. Doesn't matter how many users, integrators, whatever we have, if we don't have implementations that are willing to sign up. Now, obviously, if you have a lot of signal from users that we want this feature, that's great. If we have integrators in particular that are really focused on a feature, then they may choose to help drive support across. I've seen multiple examples in the case of Gateway API where other people who don't contribute to, say, Envoy Gateway usually really want to see a feature get across the line. So they'll jump into Envoy Gateway or Istio or you pick, right? I'm just picking ones at random here. And that helps drive a feature across the line. So what I think would be a good distinction here is I don't think we need to say limit this to maintainers of an implementation, but if we say, hey, I have somebody who is, committed to getting this across the line in insert implementation here, uh, that could be enough. Um,
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I think that Rob just said what I was going to better, is that what we need is not just a desire for the feature, and that was kind of like one of the issues that we had with the voting in the past releases, is that there was desire, but there was not necessarily people doing the work to implement it. So, and that having implementations is that bar to get it from experimental to standard. So I think that what Rob suggested, having that kind of preferable path is like working through or with your implementations as end users, as integrators. That's what I worked with an Istio contributor for retries, was very similar like that. So they were an end user and they came and worked with me to kind of like get that gap and help move it forward and do a lot of the work on that. So that's kind of a pattern that I've seen be really productive for this, because we do need things to be implemented, not just have a desire for them to exist.
So to just respond to the response to my suggestion, the thing that is changing is that we're requiring this, just after the provisional stage,
Yep.
whereas we did not require it just after the provisional stage before. We
Mhm.
needed to, I think, in some ways, we need to use the GEP itself as currency for getting implementations on board, including the work that it takes to, sometimes to do conformance tests and other supporting work for the feature. So I still think that this is not going to help us with that goal of getting a feature out the door. You know,
I mean,
if we still need people to work on other things that are not involved with an implementation.
so I think the thing that this is trying to avoid is that someone puts in a lot of work and designs an API and like gets a provisional GEP, we merge the provisional GEP, someone designs an API, someone gets the API to experimental, and then all of the implementations turn around and say, no, I'm not doing that. Right? Like that's a much worse outcome than like you not being able to get something into experimental because no implementations are willing to sign up to do it. Like the idea here is to push that failure state early so that you don't end up spending a lot of time writing conformance tests for something that someone is going to say no, that no one is going to implement, that not enough people are going to implement for it to make it a standard. Right? Like the it has always been the case that you can you can sign up for a feature, you can get it ready, and then you can have it never go to standard because you have not been able to get enough implementations interested. Right? Like that's always been the case. If you are an integrator, like that has always been a risk. All this is what this is doing is trying to move that earlier so that you know about the risk earlier so that you can address the risk earlier by going to implementations and saying, hey, like we have a lot of users who are doing this. Like, aren't you guys interested in this? And and then of course the other thing that Mike and Scott, that Mike and Rob said was that that like this is open source, right? Like if you really you are an integrator, but that doesn't mean that you can't go and make a specific feature PR to an implementation, or have someone in your team make a specific feature PR to an implementation to actually add that functionality, just that functionality, right? Like if you the point here is to just make it so that we're not spending a lot of like API development time on things that implementation is not interested in. I think that the number of times that we have had a feature, like I think that this point is largely moot because the number of times that we have had a feature where folks have not been interested, like implementations have not been interested in just implementing it straight away, is actually small, right? Like most implementations are interested in almost every feature because most features are only asked for because some customers want to use it, right? Like some users want to use it, and most implementations are interested in increasing their user base as much as possible. If anything, it's only ever about like prioritization and when you can get to it. So having people sign up is not just people sign up to say, I will definitely implement this within the next N months. It's to say, yes, I am interested in implementing this at some point. It's not to say they don't have to be like, everybody doesn't have to implement the thing as soon as it goes to experimental. Everybody has to implement the thing before it can move to standard. You just have to get people to say, yes, we will implement this at some point. And maybe if we haven't made that clear, then that's the problem. But it's not that you need to, people need to be implementing this as soon as the thing moves to experimental. Does that help at all?
That does help, and I think it would be great to see that in the main document.
Okay, cool.
But
Yeah,
also consider one more item. I don't have a lot of experience in open source, so I don't know if this happens everywhere, but we're talking about an API here. This is an API. This is not this is an API that's being driven by implementations, but at the same time, we want this API, we want our users to be able to use any implementation, right? So why do I have to choose an implementation?
Because for them to be able to use any implementation, they need to be able to use some implementations. And if their implementations are not going to, they'll build it, then no, they won't be able to use any implementations.
Maybe I want to use like any implementation, theoretically. If this one is not working out for me, then I want to use another one and still retain all of my gateways, gateway classes, and
Yeah, I mean that is absolutely a goal of Gateway API. I mean, that's like from the very early days we had demos where you replace one gateway with another implementation and everything just keeps on working. That is 100% a goal. That is way deep in the design and fundamentals of this API. But like that feels a little orthogonal too. Like that is something like we want, if the API is successful, that should be possible. On the other hand, we still, to have the API get to that point, we need many implementations to support features of the API. And that basically requires us to not let in features that implementations aren't going to support, right? It's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, right? If we let in any feature and then it turns out that no one is going to bother supporting it, we've done a disservice to the API. So this is really just pulling all those requirements forward so we have some confidence that a new feature in the API is likely to be broadly supported and will be supported by at least 3, but hopefully more implementations. And like if you look at it right now, asking for 3 is asking for around 10% of our implementations, right? Like I know not all our implementations are actively engaged with this community, but there are a lot to choose from. And if we can't meet that bar, that means that we should probably hit pause on a feature and consider something that will, have more broad support.
Yeah, it's still disappointing. The changes that I think are coming in. I mean, you're not going to be able to convince me that that all of these changes together are a good thing or that they're fair for people who are not implementing.
I'm trying just, I do want to time box this because there are other things on the agenda, but I just want to understand a little bit more here. It seems like we're not changing the requirements, we're pulling them in earlier, right? So the difference is that we could have had something like an experimental, and now we're saying we're not going to let it into experimental unless you can prove that you can get it out of experimental. And that's trying to help with the, I know, Candace, you felt the pain of this at all, the with back-end TLS, how long it took to get that out of experimental. And there were a variety of reasons for that, but part of it was the complexity of finding implementations. And so I'm hoping that if we can align features with implementations from the start, that story will become less painful going forward. But is there a specific user story I'm missing here that, like, if something had made it into experimental and experimental only and just kind of got stuck there, is that a better outcome than just not making it into the API at all?
Well, I feel like there are a lot of people who would say that if it makes it into experimental, that's okay because we run experimental. We can't wait for the stuff to go to standard. But
I mean, the other thing that we're changing though is that we're saying, hey, it can't stay in experimental forever, right? Like if it doesn't move forward to standard, it'll get removed, right? Like that, and that like I'm not going to negotiate on that one. That one is a must-have because we can't have things sitting in perma experimental. We need things to be moving out to standard so that they can be finished, right? Like, and so something going into experimental like should not be a signal that it's okay to start using it like for reals, like in production. The fact that it currently is actually bad. And so like if you don't want to wait, that's okay. But like part of what we're trying to do is to make that contract more clear that if you're using something in experimental, like in production, then you are signing up to something that might break, right? Like, and that we are trying to make that much more explicit and much more easy to understand that if you're using something in experimental, we might break it. We've been really careful not to break it because we try not to break people. But that's one of the things that we're really worried about is that we're going to end up with things like, Ingress v1 beta 1 where it's in perma beta, and then when you need to like actually graduate it, it ends up breaking a lot of people who are like, oh, but I've been using this forever. And so like really don't want to have that happen again. And so that's why we put the rules in about things being removed, is because things need to keep moving forward and they should be aiming to be standard, right? Like just getting something into experimental is not, I'm done, right? Like there's still a lot of work to do to get the thing to standard. And what we don't want to do is have people signing up for something and getting it into experimental and then walking away, right? Like, and that's why we want to have the rules about stuff not staying in experimental, is so that you can't do that. But like if you want to be able to keep using the thing that you got into experimental, you got to push it forward. You got to put the work in. At the end of the day, all of these things come down to somebody's got to pay in terms of developer time to actually get these things implemented in implementations, right? Like, and it's completely fair for users to say, hey, we really want this. We really want it. We're desperate. We cannot, any implementation that does not use this, we will not use, right? Like, but like I think you're already voting by opening gaps, by doing things. You're making it very clear to implementations that you want this feature, right? Like you can say, as an integrator, any implementation that we will use, we are very interested in having implementations do this because we have users who are desperate for this. And saying we have end users who are desperate for this is going to be a big signal for implementers to that, yes, this is a thing that users actually want, right? Like, but at the end of the day, yes, like this API needs to be implemented to be useful. And so the people who are the implementers are the ones who get to pick like which things make it to standard, because that's the criteria that we have. And that's the only fair criteria, because like at the end of the day, we need implementations to actually implement it. So sorry, Mike.
Yeah, I think I'll just try to answer Rob's question directly, and Candace, please correct me if I'm like reading this inaccurately. But my understanding of kind of the user story here, that it sounds like your concern is not getting sufficient attention, is the desire of integrators or customers to be able to express through the system a way to compel implementations to make things exist. Like basically a way to articulate, this is the thing that we need to be there, whether that's me as an end user or me as an integrator on behalf of end users. And then if you're able to advance it through that process, then implementations will be forced to comply with the specification. Is that kind of the user story?
Not really, though, but if we needed a feature and one implementation wasn't able to offer it, would switch to another implementation that was able to offer it. There's some competition involved
Oh,
amongst the
absolutely.
implementations.
There absolutely is, and it should be for like extended features, or who's the first to implement experimental things, or who's conformant with the latest release, and who's lagging behind in there. Yeah, I guess I can time box this, but I'm just trying to like understand and express kind of like the desire for something to happen doesn't necessarily make it happen. It needs to be built, ideally not just by one, but by more than one, so that you can switch to those other implementations if needed.
Yeah, +1. I do want to time box this, so I'll hand off to David for final words here.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So I'm just trying to understand this more from an implementer's perspective, because most users, they will not want to run experimental APIs in production. They will at best run it in their dev environment. And when they don't run it, then it's kind of hard for the implementers to gauge what users actually want and to get additional feedback from them. So having the bar at 3 or 4 or so many implementations willing to sponsor implementations to implement it in order to get it graduated kind of puts us in a hard spot, right? Because we know that once a feature comes in, then users are definitely going to use it. But while it's experimental, it's kind of hard to get motion with users unwilling to really test it out and get the kinks ironed out.
Yeah, that's a story we've struggled with for the history of Kubernetes, right? In Kubernetes for a long time, there's alpha, beta, GA, but because beta was enabled by default, it became basically GA, because the second that customers are using or users are using it broadly, then it has to be stable. You can't break things. And then we got basically no feedback on alpha features because it was too disruptive to try out alpha features. I don't have a great solution to this. I mean, from the perspective of an implementer, I think that hopefully we get user feedback, but one of the main goals of experimental for me is agreeing on the details, right? So experimental allows us to work together across a few different implementations, nail down conformance tests, nail down implementation details, and hopefully this is basically a 6-month or less process where you're nailing down these details. Ideally, you get some user feedback, but once you, as a few implementations agree, this is what the shape of the API should look like, then we have a fast path to GA. I think part of the hesitancy to support experimental features right now is that it's seen as potentially wasted effort, right? I could do all of this and it may never leave experimental. And what we're trying to do here by pulling this forward is we have, high confidence by starting something in experimental that's going to get out of experimental. That does require some level of trust across the handful of implementations that sign up to work together on something. But I hope that's better than, current state here.
So I think one other thing that is important, though, that Candace mentioned in the chat is, that we typically wait a long time for a feature to go from experimental to GA. Like, one of the reasons we are trying to change all this stuff is so that we can get that stuff happening faster. Right now, one of the reasons is we need to wait like a release for experimental stuff to bake, right? Like we need to have a proper cut release that people can actually pull as a dependency into their projects that they can then implement, that then people can try out using a specific release. And that means that is minimum 6-month turnaround, right? Like, and so if we make any mistakes, then we need another 6-month cycle in order to be able to make a change. So the idea of making experimental releases happen like monthly and having them be snapshots is that, it means that if for sponsoring implementations that are interested in doing something in experimental, they can implement it and have their users or themselves or somebody try it out. and then they can be like, oh no, when we try to implement this, it's very difficult to write. The way that we've structured the API, it's like really hard to actually implement. We can say, oh, okay, now we can make the change. Or conversely, we can, users can say, oh, this is great, works exactly how I want it to, and now we need to work on conformance tests. And so, but then that means if we make a mistake, then that means you've got to wait a month only to get a new thing to try out if you're an implementer, right? Like some implementations are comfortable with tagging main as their dependency, right? Like I've certainly done that in the past for Cilium, but like a lot of implementations, justifiably or not, they want to release, right? Like, and so a snapshot, a snapshot thing means that like that we can get, the idea is that we can get 4 or 5 snapshots out in the time that we would currently have one experimental release. And so that means that we can be more confident that more people have implemented this, that more changes happened, that we've had more people look at this. And so we might not need the sort of 1 year timeline to get something to GA. Like, so that's why we're trying to speed this up. And that's why we're trying to make, and I know that we are making a lot of changes all at once, but like what we're trying to do is to build a structure that means that we can go faster without having to compromise too much on the quality, right? Like that's what we're trying to do here, right? Like, I know we're way over time, but like I just really wanted to hit that because like it's going to affect the questions that we have about the next item. So
yeah, let's do that. So I think we got some really good feedback. Thanks everyone for discussion. I think there's some clear follow-ups from that, and most of them seem to be around more clearly documenting our plan, and particularly who is able to make a difference. Who's able to have a vote here or a say. Be a bit more clear there, and there are others. So yeah, let's plan a follow up there. Nick, do you feel like you got enough? Are you confident of making
I think so.
clarification?
I'll have a chat with Flynn like offline about it, and we'll figure out like how we can reflect that in the current top level discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one's yours as well.
So this one, like we've had a few had a few things cherry picked into the release 1.4 branch, which kind of implies that we need a 1.4.1 release. And so like I just wanted to see what's the appetite for folks to have a 1.4.1 patch release. That will include so there's a couple of small fixes there, and Norwin has a patch to change around to make it so that backend TLS policy will be properly included in the conformance reports, which I think is pretty valuable. What that will mean, though, is one of the reasons we've been historically reluctant to do patch releases is that the patch releases, we don't have great like tooling around them. So so for example, the conformance report summary doesn't requires like a separate page for a patch release at the moment. It doesn't sort of summarize them properly. There's a few other things like that. So I think, I'm happy for us to do a patch release, but what it will mean is like, hey, like you can't, like you can say you're like v1.4.0 compliant, but like it's not as useful as just going straight to 1.4.1. So if we do release a patch release that's 1.4.1, like everyone's going to need to update the dependencies to 1.4.1. So like and we'll need to get conformance reports of 1.141 as well, because the conformance will be different if we merge Norwin's change. So the other thing, it's the other thing that Candice raised here, which is also worth talking about, is requiring a new conformance profile. I don't think we've done a good job of explaining exactly what the conformance profiles are. So this PR is Norwin saying like, hey, let's add backend TLS policy features to the gateway HTTP profile. The way he's doing it at the moment, this will mean that backend TLS policy is required to be conformant for the backend HTTP profile. I don't think we want that. I think that we want backend TLS policy to be optional. You don't have to support HTTP route. You don't have to support backend TLS policy. So the thing that I was going to explain there is that I'm like, I need to check, like, again, I haven't checked exactly how the suite is working lately, but that's one of the things that I don't want to have happen, is that you're required to support backend, like a resource like backend TLS policy. As I said in a comment on the issue, the idea here is that overall for Gateway API, that you don't have to support all the objects, right? Like if you do north-south, you have to support gateway class and gateway, but you don't have to support any specific route object. You can only support HTTP route if you want. You can only support gRPC route if you want, right? Like, and so you can only support TLS route if you want, although that would be pretty weird. Like the idea here is that the route objects are actually optional. Each route object is actually extended, right? Like that's what the profiles are actually doing. The gateway HTTP is gateway plus HTTP route. Gateway TLS is gateway plus HTTP route plus TLS stuff, and TLS route optionally. But like, so the idea here is that you don't, the profiles are a way to sum up a bunch of features rather than it being a way. So having a profile for policy doesn't really make sense because backend TLS policy doesn't work unless you also support gateway and HTTP route, right? Like you have to support those two objects. It's required. So I think that's sort of the thing that I wanted to explain here is that has always been the idea. I think that there's definitely confusion. I have seen confusion about what extended means. And I've tried to summarize that before as extended means that for that thing and for anything that's part of that thing, it's optional. Like if you support HTTP route, then like HTTP route is technically extended. You don't have to support the gateway HTTP profile. If you do support HTTP route, then there are some functionality included in the HTTP route bucket that is core for HTTP route. That means if you support HTTP route, you must support like all of those functionality. Under HTTP route, there are also some extended features. That means that if you support HTTP route, you may also support those extended features. Those extended features within them may have core behavior. That's if you support that feature, you must do this. And then underneath those extended features, some extended features have extended features of their own, right? So this can keep going down. But the distinction between core and extended is always extended means that everything under it is optional, but it may have mandated behaviors if you do support it. And so that's sort of what where the extended and core thing comes in. I do not think like adding one for policy is not meaningful because the backend TLS policy is only relevant for the gateway HTTP profile and the gateway TLS profile, right? Like
plus one on everything. Let's keep this moving because I'm noticing there's a lot running down the agenda, and we do have one hand.
Yep, Shelley.
Hey, I actually have a quick question regarding the conformance test. So we're from AWS and working on this controller. So we do have follow-up questions regarding conformance tests. Is it gonna be, sorry, it's my first time joining this meeting. So can we discuss it together right now, or I should probably put it to the, I don't know, underneath the agenda?
Yeah, let's add it to the agenda and we'll try and go real quick. I've got a few minutes. I can stay later if anyone else can. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, and welcome to the call, Shelley.
Yes, welcome.
Cool. All right, Nick.
So this is
see Becca here.
Becca, are you here?
No, I don't see him. Yeah.
Okay. So this is just a reminder that we are working on the blog post. I have an item to write a thing up for auth that I haven't done yet. Things have been on fire, but hopefully those things will be off fire very soon, and I can actually get on to doing that.
For implementations that are wanting to be included in the blog post, a reminder, I should post this in Slack as well. We include implementations that have posted conformance results, submitted conformance reports within a couple days before the blog post goes live. Blog post is currently scheduled for November 6th. That means that you should probably aim for November 3 to get your conformance reports in to be included in that blog post, because it needs to be merged a couple days in advance to, there's some churn there. There's some time required before it's published. So if you do want to be included, I saw the first 1.4 conformance report come in today, I think. I expect there'll be more, but just heads up, you've got around a week to get those in.
Exactly.
Candice?
Just a quick question. Backend TLS policy is standard now, so, and
Yeah.
we don't have it in the conformance tests yet, so shouldn't we
It is in
address
conformance tests. What do you mean?
So so
It's-
currently when you run a conformance report, you don't get backend TLS policy features in the actual conformance report.
I see.
And so
Okay,
that's what No One's Change is trying to add, is that we missed making sure that the backend TLS
Yeah.
policy test changes actually show up. The only thing that I'm worried about there is that, like I said, like I want it to be that those are actually that it is actually extended. So as long as No One's Changes make it in, then like then we just need to check
Yeah.
that it can be extended. If so, then we can merge that in. That would mean that for those conformance profiles, that's where we come into the, are you using release 1.4 or release 1.4.1? I think for the purposes of the blog, what I would be willing to say is if you submit any 1.4 conformance report, then that's fine. When we talk about backend TLS policy, we're going to have to actually, instead of just relying on the conformance reports, we're going to have to ask and be on the honor system for folks to be like, hey, do you support backend TLS policy? Because we've missed this as part of this release. So like, we're going to have to actually check with the implementations. Ricardo?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, if we really need to cut a release for conformance or just merge to the branch, because usually you can just compile the binary and run the binary against, from the branch or doing something like that. So I would say that we can avoid cutting the release if that's just a problem, but letting people know that they need to, compile a binary or run from that checkout branch.
We don't strictly need to, but since the conformance reports are against a gateway API version, it's definitely cleaner if they're against a patch release. So these tests were run against this patch version of of gateway API as opposed to off of main that happened to be a few commits after. It's a more consistent target. But yeah, you're right. It is not strictly required. Cool. Okay. Let's keep on moving because there's a lot here. David, you've got the next one, experimental API promotion.
Yeah, so I'm interested in getting listener sets promoted to standard, and a huge shout out to Ricardo, Nick, and Rob for reviewing the conformance test PRs and having discussions and helping me along with that. So I'm looking at the graduation criteria, and it does seem a bit vague, right? There have to be complete conformance tests and several implementations. So is there something that is more specific that I can work towards? Because I know that I'm trying to add conformance tests, and we have at least 2 implementations for listener sets. So I'm trying to see what would need to push it to get it promoted.
Yeah, I mean it is. I'll agree with you. It is vague. What we've done in GEPS in the past is I wouldn't say this has been as consistent as it should be, but certainly what is done in upstream and what is sometimes done in Gateway API is we have a full test plan in the GEP itself. And then when you achieve that test plan, you've achieved, sufficient conformance test coverage.
Okay.
I would recommend that as a solution here because listener set is one of the bigger features we've added anytime recently. So adding that kind of consensus, inside the GEP, here are the things we need to cover. Getting sign off from a couple maintainers, for example, or the GEP auth, Dave in this case, or Ricardo's been doing a lot of work, but people who are really involved here would be helpful. Maybe someone representing. So I think you're working on K Gateway, right, David? And then maybe any other implementations that are working on it, make sure they review. And I think that's the missing piece here. Thank you so much for driving that forward. I think it'll be really exciting to see this one move forward. And yeah.
I have definitely been trying to keep an eye on it because listener set is a big thing that I have been wanting for ages. Cilium, I am intending to implement listener set in Cilium, but currently all development work on Cilium's Gateway A support is done by one guy, and you're looking at him. Like, you know, I just haven't got to it yet. But the so yeah, I think the thing that I'm really worried about with this set is for the conformance tests is just that we're covering the, we are properly covering the we are properly covering the failure cases. What happens when, with the various different types of conflict and all those sorts of things. That's the biggest thing I'm worried about. I forget exactly what we've covered so far in the conformance tests, but like, just so that you can sit down and have a think about it, like if you could go through the listener set spec and just be like, what are all the ways that it could go wrong? We need to have conformance tests for all the ways that it could go wrong. We need to be pretty test driven here, in the sense that we need to cover as much as possible out of the spec for things that could go wrong. I think that's the sort of the main thing I'm worried about, and that's one of the reasons why that is vague. Is because what's sort of enough conformance depends on the feature. If it's a simple feature, then maybe like one conformance test will be enough. For something complicated with a lot of failure cases like listener set, like, enough can be a bit woolly, because like we all got to agree exactly on what is enough. Yeah.
Okay, so just to recap, get consensus on the GEP on what all is the test. Once the tests are added, we can proceed to promotion, since we already have 2 implementations, and since it's a large feature, I think that would be all right, right?
So
But that
traditionally
one,
we've relied on 3 implementations.
Okay.
So we'll need to find one more somewhere. It sounds like, based on the chat thread, it could be AWS actually, which would be awesome. And there may be others lurking around as well. So
yeah. I know that I know that issue already supports that on experimental, at least. So that's one place to look.
Got it. So then just to make sure, once we get the conformance test ready and we have 3 implementations, we are ready to move forward to promotion.
100%. And ideally, so although we're doing monthly releases for experimental starting soon, we're still going to have our, regular stable releases. We're planning on I think a 4-month cadence here. We have not nailed down exactly when our first 4-month will be, but you can assume February-ish based on current time frame. So it would be awesome if we could squeeze it into that.
Okay, that sounds good. Is there any discussion or any type of voting? Because I remember there were discussions around that as well.
I don't think so at this point. What we've transitioned to is, if it's ready, it's in the release. If it's not, it's not. No scoping anymore. Just whatever can make it in, can make it in. And if it doesn't, we're not delaying the release. It's just going to keep on moving.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, guys.
Just a heads up.
Thank you.
We may find problems during the conformance, as we've seen on backend TLS policy test. So we expect, more conformance fixes on the implementations. That's one of the ideas.
I do want to share an idea. This is very early, but since we have a lot to go through, I'll try and be very quick on this. One of the ideas that we've come to, basically, as we've been looking at multi-cluster inference over with our neighbors in Gateway's inference extension, is the concept of, what if we took a more gateway-centric view to multi-cluster? And basically what we have right now is there's a memorandum gap or something like that is basically describing how gateways can target multi-cluster services. And there's a small handful of gateway implementations that do that today. And that's been okay. But one of the limitations of multi-cluster service is that it's very, very closely tied to multi-cluster to service as the backend type, right? It requires a one-to-one namespace mapping with service. And so one of the ideas that we've had, kind of as we've been thinking about how we could make this better, is, what if we introduced something that we're calling composite backend for the sake of this proposal, that really is just a multi-cluster backend, no front end, no, basically a subset of what multi-cluster services does today, but that allows you to target different kinds of backends. So, the ones that we're very aware of right now are inference pool and service, but I expect there will be others. So one of the things you probably saw, there's been some discussion about like cluster IP gateways, and that was like a more primitive backend type that was just an endpoint selector. I think there's going to be more backend types over time. So having a multi-cluster model that allows for that seems like it would be, a good idea looking forward into the future, to future-proof our APIs. And so started with this really rough doc. I'll give credit here. This doc is not written by me. It's written by Alan, who's been really, I won't take too much credit for this idea because Alan had the original idea. I saw, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. We should do this. And so I'm a supporter of this, but it is not originally my idea. And yeah, so basically, it would feel somewhat similar to multi-cluster service, with the idea that you have a composite backend that has a backend ref and feels very gateway-like. Maybe it allows you to join different services together. Maybe it allows you to join different inference pools together. Maybe it allows you to join different kinds of backends together. But really, just this overall pattern of let's have a more generic way to approach multi-cluster. So this is just, as you can tell, a very, very early draft. There's not much to it right now, but just wanted to gauge interest in talking more about multi-cluster and its intersection with Gateway, and if this idea resonates with any folks. Nick?
The question that I just thought I should make sure you address at some point is, can a composite backend target a composite backend? Because if you don't say no, someone will do it.
I hope not. I did. So I have had the thought that maybe a composite backend could target a gateway. But like that feels pretty, turtles all the way down kind of thing. But like, I don't think composite backend to composite backend. It's harder for me to see that one. But yeah, good point.
Yeah, so yeah, like, to be honest, I would say you should say no. A composite backend cannot target a composite backend.
Yes, I agree. Yes. Okay, so I'll leave that out there. If anyone has comments, questions, leave them on the doc. Ping me on Slack, whatever it is. We can talk more at KubeCon too if you're going to be there. But yeah, just kind of want to throw out an idea and see if it resonates. The next one, this is just an FYI. There's a new SIG network sub-project for agentic networking. There's not a lot there right now. There's a Slack channel, and there's a repo, and there's community meetings every week. And just if you're interested, it's kind of like on the edges of Gateway API. It's providing some extensions that sometimes overlap or extend Gateway API. So just heads up, this exists. Feel free to join the Slack, watch the repo, whatever, if it's an area that interests you. And then the next one on the list, I'll also try and be quick here. KubeCon. I don't know how many folks are going to be able to make it to Atlanta this year. But if you are, it'd be great to have some of our usual break room sessions. What that basically means is we usually try and schedule 5 to 7 sessions throughout the conference that are focused on different topics. I've gotten some interest of other corners of SIG Network kind of joining in and taking the same pattern and just having one shared schedule for all of the different sessions. So that makes sense to me. I threw out some ideas for topics, but if you're planning on being at KubeCon and you have topics that you think would benefit from in-person discussion, maybe just add them to the list for now. And we'll try and make sure we can get something scheduled. Yeah, I'll leave it there, but just heads up, this is happening. It's hard to believe we're only 2 weeks away from that. So it's gonna come up fast. But yeah, if you're able to make it, will be great to see you. Then the next one, Ricardo.
Okay, so quick one. I have raised that on past, and I am still moving on PRs to reduce the amount of dependencies that we have on Gateway API. I guess Dave from Knative raised concerns about the Go workspace. But anyway, if you are an implementer, take a look into those PRs. I've been discussing that with Rob. We've been discussing what's next. Like Rob keep asking, like, why we still have like controller runtime or something like that. And as soon as we spread more of those libraries, the repo may become a bit more complex or complicated. But the gain here is that, like, as an implementer, you won't need to vendor things that you shouldn't on your own implementation, right? So please take a look. It's somehow a bit massive PR because I keep moving things, and I wanted to discuss if we are fine next after this PR as a part 3 to start moving conformance and the tests, because the tests they use env test from controller runtime to some other also to its own directory and Go module. And moving away. Yeah, go for it.
You linked to the one that's already merged. Isn't this one
Oh, I
step
did?
1 and you have another that's step 2?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Okay. I think
Sorry.
I think I've seen another one from you that
Or someone
com-
merged it and, you know.
okay. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
there. That's 41888. I did one there and 41.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Yeah.
keep opening a lot of PR, sorry.
You know, Ricardo, it is the most confusing thing that your Slack is RP and your GitHub is RI. I keep on having to like
Yeah,
double check
you
myself.
don't you don't want to see my Red Hat email. It's something different as well. So that's but yeah, I will. I won't change anything actually, Rob. Otherwise, people are not gonna find me. But yeah, just take a look, folks. See how this is gonna impact you. If this change also is fine, probably the next one is gonna be to move the tests. And my goal is to have the libraries of even the client Go I was discussing, because generated client vendors things that maybe you don't care, like Cube Open API and other things. Like if you are just using, you know, controller runtime or static or unstructured, you don't care about like Cube Open API and other things, or the static client. So just go ahead, do a review, make some comments, see how this is going to impact your life as an implementer. And the other thing that I'm doing on that one, it's generating the binary for conformance test on the PR that I kind of mistyped, which is something that I know that it's going to impact directly on Finn's life, because he does have Rust stuff. So he doesn't, you know, just run Go tests against Rust things. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, man,
Yeah,
thank you so much. This is awesome. I know
certainly think
Antonio
that,
in particular will be thrilled to see this.
Yeah, I think that I would really like to get it to be that I think that although we generally don't want to provide deployable things, having a like deployable image that is the conformance binary would actually be really useful, because then it's then that makes it much easier for both implementations to run it as part of their CI and for users to rerun conformance anytime they want. So yeah, I think that would be really good. I think we will definitely need a canvas for implementations. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, we've made it to the last time in our agenda. It does feel like it's likely to go past the hour, so if you need to drop, completely understand. But with that said, I can stick around for a bit longer. So let's talk about conformance tests for whoever is interested.
Yep.
Thank you. Hi, I think we briefly talked about this one in the Slack channel already. I'm not sure, Zach, do you want to start the conversation or I can just go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So we got our beta release and then trying to get the conformance testing done. And then during the test, the goal for us is we want to get it to be like fully conformant. And then one of the requirement is we need to be able to pass the test for one of the profile. And then the one we are choosing is the gateway and HTTP route. So for that one, the core test for gateway, it's not actually really applied to what we are doing the implementation. For example, the gateway TLS part, the reference, the certificate ref part. So we don't actually take into the inputs from those. There is another CRD we had for doing the similar thing for adding the certificates. So this is like one of the example. The other example is so our load balancer is taking longer to provision. So I actually need to modify the timeout in the timeout that file. And then there is also I think there are also some other changes we need to make in the manifest file. For example, the type for the service. We do need to add the type equal to node port in order to make it running. So all of those making to the point is it's not like we can't really support this feature, but we actually need to make some modification in the conformance test file in that package itself. I'm just wondering how, like, are you guys okay with that, or it has to be using the exact package itself to show the test result? Because looking at the final reporting, it doesn't really check what version of conformance test we are using. Like it doesn't really enforce any of those there.
Yeah, no, you're right. It doesn't. There's a certainly we rely on an honor system here, and we basically ask that everyone provide reproduction steps, and if someone wants to challenge, that hasn't happened so far, but it certainly could. If they get different results than
Yeah, I think
are reported,
think-
that would be a problem. Yeah, go ahead, Nick. Yeah.
I think that there's definitely a few things that you mentioned in there that seem like they would be deal breakers for me.
Yeah.
Like part of the API is that the TLS secrets must be stored in a secret in a Kubernetes.io/ TLS style like type secret object. So like if your implementation is not able to do that at all, then then you won't be able to be conformant. Like that's written into the specification that you have to do that. In terms of like service types and stuff like that, we don't specifically we don't mandate a service type. I think by default the conformance says do create a load balancer type. But we have added
So it's different. What they're asking for, as I understand it, is a bit different. It's not a service behind a gateway. It's literally the service that's being targeted by an HTTP route in the conformance tests. And that's what I think.
Yeah. So I think I don't think we've ever been specific about actually, no, we have. We do say that it does need to be a cluster IP service that is targeted by a HTTP route.
Yeah, that one feels a little fuzzier to me. I agree on the TLS cert one. That one feels so. One, I'll say, from GK perspective, I can certainly empathize with you on TLS. Translating TLS to Cloud LBs is not the most simple thing in the world, and we've provided a bunch of implementation-specific TLS ways to configure TLS. But we also support the secret one, even though it's a bit annoying. found a way to wire it up, and hopefully that's possible for you as well, because like the goal is, like going back to earlier in the meeting, we really want it to be possible for somebody to use the core bits of API and, you know, replace their gateways and, you know, use the same config and have it just work, right? Obviously,
Mm.
We did the
implementation
same on
specific
Azure for what it's
extensions
worth.
are great, but yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I will
like,
I'll also empathize with you on slow to spin up load balancers. We've also had to, like, I think I linked to like where we override the timeouts.
I saw that.
But those are meant to be configurable. So I know they're not easily configurable or maybe configurable at all via CLI, but they're certainly configurable just via flags. So yeah, that would be in order of like timeouts. Definitely configure to your heart's content, as long as it's very clear in your reproduction instructions how to configure them. Secrets feel, you know, non-negotiable. Service requires some more discussion. That would be my high level response.
Zach?
I can add some more detail here. Yeah. I think Shelly articulated it very well. I think we know we're not going to make a conformant. Like our gateway implementation is not going to be completely conformant. We know that that's like data plane implementation that we know we need to get AWS to prioritize. We're okay with that. Like the cert being stored in the secret is something our data plane cannot support right now, unfortunately. We're okay with that. What we're trying to figure out is like how much can we change these conformance tests with the things that we actually support. So like can we change the services to be node port specific, because that's what our data plane mandates. Just trying to figure out where we can draw the line at, because we want to be as conformant as possible as long as our data plane allows it.
So what I would say right now is every cloud provider that has submitted conformance report so far is listed as partially conformant, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And I think that's still the case for Azure. I know that's still the case for GKE.
I think we did move to fully in 1.3. I might be wrong on that, but I think we did.
So but part of the confusion here is also that I haven't finished doing the update to the implementations page that will make this more clear. But there is definitely intended to be there is like basically not conformant, partially conformant, and fully conformant. Partially conformant is you claim some profile conformance, but you don't pass all the tests for it. And so that's like, it's okay to be partially conformant. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like like you can't say you're fully conformant unless you pass all of the core functionality for the things without modifying the core stuff. So that's, again, that comes down to the difference between core and extended. Like core is the stuff you must do, and that's the sort of the minimum viable sort of interoperability stuff. Basically having skipped tests means that you are partially conformant at best. But it's okay to skip tests. You can submit a conformance report that is partially conformant. That is 100% fine. And in fact, the implementations page that currently lists all the implementations will be like, I have posted an update to that says the process I will do, but I haven't had time to do it. But the process is going to be that if you have not posted a conformance report for the for the last 3 versions, I think, that is at least partially conformant, then you will not be allowed to be on the implementations page anymore. So like you can, implementations page is effectively marketing. We actually have to be very careful as part of the Kubernetes project about what we're allowed to market to allow people to get marketing value out of. And so like there's in that implementations page, which is like on the main Gateway API website implementations, there's a bit down the bottom that basically lists all of these rules. And the intent there is to make it so that these rules are sort of fairly enforced on everybody. But yeah, that's what the partially conformant thing is. So like, if there are some tests that you can't pass, it's okay to just skip them and say like, we can't do this. We can't do terminated TLS as per the spec because we don't support using a secret. Like that's okay. Like if you do TLS route, then you can pass the TLS route parts of that one, or similar. But you can't say like you're fully conformant. You can say you're partially conformant, but not fully conformant.
I think
Yep.
we have agreement on that we are going to be partially conformant, not going to be fully conformant
Mhm.
at this point.
Yep.
I think, but our main question is actually for those tests that we know that we can pass, it's just need to make some changes to the manifest file. How
So
No, you
Yeah,
don't even
so-
need to. You just there's a flag to skip tests. Just skip the ones you know you can't pass.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, so don't change your manifest files, just skip them.
Yep.
Yep. So but because the manifest files are actually part of the conformance tests, like the intent is that someone can just take a file that looks like that manifest file and run it on your implementation without having to change it. And so like if you have to change it to get the conformance test to pass, then you can't pass the conformance test, right? Like so there are some where that is like less flexible than others. Like I like about the service, we actually need to go back and look over the spec to see what we've said there. It's been a while since I looked at but I think we do actually say only some types of service are supported. Currently, I think I actually think because I've run into this on Cilium as well, that like I think we actually specifically say only cluster IP services are supported, and we don't support node port services as a backend. And if that's the case, then like if you can make the conformance test pass by changing it to a node port, that's cool, but like that's not the same conformance test anymore. Like like I know I need to go and look at the actual details of that conformance test to check, but in general, like if you need to mutate the manifests, then that means that probably that one is just one you're going to have to skip.
I think that's Mike can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that's how Azure got to partially conformant status is they were adding annotations to gateways, I think. I don't know, but
There was one scenario in which to get it to do it, you needed to get something to recognize something else. You needed to additionally add an annotation to a gateway resource for it to like pick up on it or something like
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
So for
like
at least
what,
like 2 releases, we were partially conformed because we were dependent on that.
Yep.
what I can imagine as a viable way to approach partially conformant status is again not to modify the tests, but change your reproduction instructions to install like a mutating webhook or something like that that changes cluster IP services to node port services so that people can reproduce it. It's still partially conformant, but it gets your report in there, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we've done similarly, having instructions posted of like, if you want to replicate these results, here's how you would do that.
Yep.
I think what Mike was saying was kind of like what we're looking for. So we don't strictly need a node port service. We just need like you can configure the load balancer to use a node port, and that's our default. So we just need some way of conveying configuration to our gateways.
Yeah.
So using like the annotation is an example of one way that we configure. Like we use a CRD, but it's the same thing.
So the other thing that you could look at doing, like changing your implementation to do, is to because you pass the gateway class, if you have a gateway class set up that uses a params ref to like configure the behavior of all the gateways in that gateway class to act in a certain way, then you can have that params ref and the gateway class pre-set up when you run the conformance tests. And then if that gateway class, all the gateways behave in a way that passes the conformance tests, that's okay, as long as in your replication you outline that you must have the gateway class and you must have a params ref that looks like this in order to be able to pass the conformance. That's okay, right? Like, yeah, but the idea here is to keep the machinery the same so that everybody's using exactly the same machinery, and then modify the bits outside of the machinery if you need to, and document what modifications you're making outside of the machinery, right? And so that's that's how we sort of make sure that it's like both fair and consistent, is that everyone is using exactly the same machinery.
I think that makes sense. So the conclusion is the timeout is something that we can configure, but then modifying the manifest is really like something that we don't really want to do. But instead we can try to have some pre-config or like something other than this test package we can change.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, I would strongly recommend like using the params ref is actually definitely, that is the way that that we built into the API for you to be able to make that sort of config change, so that there is a structured object somewhere that has that config in it, and you can say that structure, you need to refer to one of these objects, and that object needs to have these values in it. That's 100% fine, right? Like and then what you can do is you can say in your conformance test, you are able to supply a mode in the conformance testing, and if you give that mode a name and then you say that you have to run in this mode, and that mode is set up by doing this, then that's all 100% above board, and you can be fully conformant, right? Like and it's okay for you to have only one mode that's fully conformant and the other ones are partially or something like that. That's cool, right? Like, and one of the things that we did agree on as part of this change to the implementations page is that if you have at least one mode that is fully conformant, then your implementation can hand on heart say it is fully conformant, right? Like fully conformant does not mean that every mode has to be fully conformant. Fully conformant means that at least one mode has to be fully conformant. Okay, so that means that if you have to have like a mode that requires some like params ref and stuff like that to be fully conformant, that maybe says, hey, like in this case, you can take a TLS thing from a secret, but that's not the best way to do it for our implementation. You can have this is the conformant one that says that it can be conformant and it's largely conformant, and then you can have other modes that are like, hey, we can't do that specific thing, but everything else is good, and it's all the same code, right? Like so like part of the point of this is to try and be fair to implementations that are like, hey, we want to do stuff that's not actually conformant, but still being true to the sort of overall goal of Gateway API, that there is a portable core that you can just lift and shift gateways and they will just work. That at the end of the day is the thing that we're really aiming for, is that you need to be able to just pick up a gateway, drop it into someone else's implementation, point it at drop it into a new cluster, point it at the right gateway class, and not have to change that gateway at all, right? And have it just work.
Which will end up being better for your users too, because if they're migrating from a different implementation or different provider, or just following a generic tutorial, they'll be able to get their thing up and running, and then they could look for, hey, how do I switch this stuff to get your optimized integrated functionality?
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of why we're trying to enable this, just to make sure that folks have a way to be like fully conformant, so that you have this sort of easy on ramp for your users.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Just want to double check one thing. When you say mode, do you mean profile or a resource kind?
There is no. So there's I think so. The profile, the conformance profile is the gateway HTTP, but I think there is some sort of, I can't remember what the field is called in the conformance report and in the conformance machinery. There is a way to give this specific run of the conformance report a name, a profile name, like a mode name. So if you look at the implementations page, then there is a sort of a mode column on that implementations page that was added in 1.3. I think if you look at the 1.31, there is a mode column there. And so you can have one implementation have multiple modes, and the implementation can support different features in different modes.
Oh,
so that's like,
on that one.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it works because it's been a while since I looked at it. But there is definitely a way to do that, because I know Kong, for example, has different modes that support different features in the different modes.
Yep.
Thank you. That's helpful. Sorry, one last thing. Mike, can you actually share because you mentioned that there was some customized setting that your team is doing. Can you share me the link?
I can go try to dig it up. I'm not sure if it's still required. I think that they were able to get rid of that. But I can find the issue where it was mentioned from the initial kind of partial conformance part. I can go find that and stick in meeting notes.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well,
thanks for the extra time.
Yeah, and thanks for coming to the meeting. Like, it's always nice to get new implementations, and please feel free to come back and ask any more questions, or ask in the Slack channel, or or ping us and stuff like that, because like we really do want to make sure that we are helping implementations like actually get to at least partial conformance and sort of get as close to conformance as they can, because the more implementations they have, the better off the API is.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for your time. It's already passing for like 17 minutes, but thanks a lot.
Okay, yeah,
No worries. Thanks so much.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
Bye.